Morning, motivators. So I am so excited today to have Gavin Stephens on. He works for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but to be honest with you, that's only surface level of who he is as a man and a patriot. He is a father and a husband. He's a Navy veteran. He was on submarines, I believe, but we'll forgive him for that one. And he's also an HR guru for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So those of you that know me really well, I'm a 29-year Navy vet, and I returned back home. I actually live in Cleveland, about a mile down the road from my mom, actually. And one of the reasons I came back home is for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Guardians, formerly known as the Cleveland Indians. But I'm a hometown kid, and so is Gavin. One thing about him that, and why I'm so honored to have him on is that he's a mentor to me. When I was transitioning from the military, I was looking for someone in the HR realm to give me advice and guidance. And I did a search on LinkedIn, and up pops a guy that worked for the Cleveland Cavaliers named Gavin Stephens. That's how we met, literally. I sent him a message saying, hey, I'm interested in HR. Here's what I do in the United States Navy. You're a Navy vet. I'm about to be a Navy vet. You work in HR. I'm interested in HR. Do you mind having a conversation with me? So that's my advice to those who are transitioning or anyone that's looking to find a mentor in the field that you're interested in. LinkedIn is a great tool for that. So Gavin, back to the original story, immediately responded to me. And literally, I think it was 10 o'clock in the morning when I sent him that message. He and I were on a FaceTime, Skype call, a Zoom call, whatever, literally by 4 o'clock that afternoon. And we have been in touch ever since. I still owe him a beer. I've been home for a year now, and he's busy and I'm busy, and we haven't linked up yet. But here we are linking up. And boy, I'm so excited to have him. So real quick, let me show you a little bit of a hype video that I prepped for us. And then we'll get the conversation and bring Gavin into the studio.
He always finds a way to shock the world.
It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
It is electric behind the back.
You know how I feel.
Is he really out? Here we go. Rebound.
Stephens loves to love. Love has to unload.
It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
Toro denied him twice. Romeo directs traffic. Up there! Oh, Jersey! Pocket goes by. Take down the lane. Bang it down to Dallas. Makes it three. Fires the three. Nails the three.
Man, I tell you what, when I hear Cleveland, when I go to a game, man, that guy's in the right job. Your organization found the right guy to be the voice at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. I just love going to those games. So welcome, Gavin. It's great to have you. We still haven't met face to face, but it's great to have you here, brother.
It is. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for the intro. I was telling them HR guru is a little strong for me, but I appreciate the intro and thanks for connecting and reaching out to do this. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, man. I couldn't be more appreciative. I think that one piece of you and I were talking about transitioning, and that's going to be really the first thing I want to talk to you about before we get too deep into the team itself and the Cavs. But it's scary. I don't care if you have, my son's going to transition out next year, and he's got 8 or 9 years in, and I transitioned at 29, and man, it's scary. And I think there's fear there. You and I talked about that before the show started, was how do you navigate not only the actual transition itself, but the fear that's involved with that. So I'm gonna hand that over to you, because I think you were kind of, putting all of that in a box. And I think you have a great example of some of the things that you dealt with. So how did you handle your personal transition?
Well, I agree with that. Anytime you got the military, it's tough. And for me, I was kind of in the middle, number one. So I was at 12 years, which is kind of a unique, time point to get out of your career, right? So I was at E6, I was, retirement eligible. And, for me, a lot of people looking at me like, well, let's just line it up for chief, let's go, right? and it makes sense, right? Because, my time in the Navy was overwhelmingly positive. I still think, young man, young women, go ahead and join the Navy, see the world, make some money, learn something, all about it. But, everybody's story is a little bit different. And for me, I have so much respect for people that do like 29 years like you is, or even 20, because quite honestly, I was burned out. That's just the honest truth, right? I think, everybody deals with that a little bit different. I'm not here to say I was like super sailor or anything like that, but the Navy and what I did is something that really, it's a consuming job. Mm-hmm. So I did 2 subs. I was on the USS Kentucky and the USS Maine, both out there on the West Coast, and Bangor Submarine Base, or Naval Submarine Base, Kitsap Bangor, however it's worded now, and loved it out there. In between all that, I did a recruiting tour back here in Cleveland on the West Side. But it was just kind of time for me. And I think like a lot of people, when you as someone that's been a command master chief know this story is, right? I just first sea tour, single, loving life, go to shore duty, get married, right? Start growing, right?
Right.
By the time I get to the second sea tour, it's like, this just isn't quite what it used to be for me personally, right? Maybe they didn't lie to me. It's just, for me, it was just a lot, right? And some of the, the challenges of going out underway was just I kind of reached my limit on that. So I think when it comes to transition, there was a couple of things important for me. Number one, this will sound cliche, but really solid, family support, right? My wife was really, really positive and supportive about helping me make the change out of there, right? And I think a lot of times, right, that might not always be the case, right? I had someone that was like, hey, Gavin, if you're ready to do this, I'm ready. So if that means we get out and land wherever we're at, and it doesn't start 100% smooth, I'm okay. I'm going to roll with you, right? I'm going to stick with you, right? That meant a lot to me to give me the confidence, right? Because quite honestly, first class, how that goes. There's no secrets on this. C-pay, sub-pay, BAH, right? It just is a first class. Like, we're living pretty comfortable, right? My wife was working. Right. So as a man, that stuff matters, right? I don't want to get out and go from what we have right now, where I can pay for wherever we're living, the 2 cars, and at the time, my 2 kids, and then go out into the unknown, right? Mm-hmm. So I had somebody in my corner that was willing to stick with me if by chance it didn't go smooth when I got out, right? And then second really is just, and I'm gonna say it like it was like confidently, but at the time I wasn't so confident, just really trying to have a plan for what you want in your future.
Right.
And so hard to do. Like for me, I've wanted to work in sports my whole life. Love sports, huge sports fan. Didn't actually play any sports growing up, right? I didn't, but just loved it, right? And I mean, years ago before the Navy, I was actually when I graduated from high school when I was 17 and went off to Bowling Green for a year.
Okay.
For a sports management degree. Before it was kind of like an in vogue thing that had it. Mm-hmm. And just threw that all up, right? ended up back home at 18, right?
Oh
So
yeah, I know this story. You're talking about my life right now. Go ahead. But I went to Ohio State.
yeah. And I tell people all the time is like I didn't fail out of school. I like seed out of school, but my folks still had no money to pay for that back then in 2004, right? So
Yeah.
I went to college with a very clear directive, like, hey Gavin, you got to go there, do the right thing, and come back with financial aids and scholarships, help us out. I did not do that. So, and this is the real world, right? So this is not a fairy tale story. I ended up right back home in Cleveland, right, with nothing to show for it, right? So that's really how I ended up joining the Navy. I was back home in Cleveland, man, and I just we cussing on this. I can't cuss.
Yeah, you can cuss away.
I bullshit you not. I was back home in Cleveland. I had 2 jobs and no money. I was working at a Sears at a mall that doesn't exist anymore, right? And I was working at a supermarket and just, just looking around like, man, I really screwed this up. And, like a lot of people want to talk to the recruiter. And at the time, my idea was, let me do 4 or 5 years. And it was a 5-year contract for what I ended up getting into, get my life together and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And really joined the Navy and just really, really enjoyed it. I loved it. Got out there, got to see different parts of the country, just not even on a boat yet, just being able to go to boot camp in like Illinois. Then they had me out in Groton for like a year, and I got to experience the East Coast and Providence and Boston, New York City, and then get to go out and go to the West Coast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoyed it, right? So I might be getting off track here. I'm giving the whole back.
No, it's okay. You know what? As you're talking, so I'm not going to slow you down. You keep telling your story, but as you're talking, what I'm watching is you enjoying reliving it.
Yeah.
So it's going through your head, and your brain's firing, the synapses are going, and you're like, man, it was awesome. And I do it too. So I'm not going to slow you down. You keep telling your story, brother.
Yeah. It was. Like I did enjoy it. I really did. It's just there's so many things that go into it, right? Especially with the Navy, and I just really learned a lot. Like I'm the guy who joined the Navy. Just talking about my first boat, so we're talking about 2000. I left for boot camp just December 05. I was in Groton for like a year in A school and all that whole pipeline.
Yeah.
Didn't show up to a boat till like January 07. And just loved him. I had a good group of guys there that like took care of me, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes into that, right? And there's a lot of things, and sometimes when people talk about transitioning from the military, it's that support, right? So me, and I'm gonna keep it 100% real for you, Black guy, Cleveland, Ohio, right? Coming from where I come from, joined the one thing in the Navy that was pretty much 100
submarines.
Yeah,
right.
There's stuff that goes along with it, right? There really is, right?
Yeah.
It's real, right?
Man. Yes. I never thought about that. That is funny. Yeah.
It's real. And just the anxiety you feel when you first walk up on the pier, like, different, and never had an issue, right? Those guys took care of me, man. Those guys made me part of their group, right?
Sure.
I mean, I didn't have a license when I didn't have a car, but I had a license. I think I had a car. So and if Matt Hendel sees this, man, I'm gonna tag him on this, man. Took me out to get my first car, a little Hyundai Sonata. I didn't have any car. That stuff just matters to you, man. So you get out there and you learn and you grow. And just had a really good time, man. And just
let me press pause on that for a minute, though. And so I've always, and I see some of your posts on LinkedIn, and we could talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion if you wish, but it's not really something I always delve into. But I will tell you, it's something that in the military, especially for younger people, that it's natural, right? So you're talking about experiences that are shared experiences across the board, regardless of who you are, where you came from. You and I are just two city kids, right? I'm a West Side Cleveland kid from Fulton and Clark, right? Over by the zoo. I tell everybody that my parents found me in the zoo and brought me home, right? But you talk about, you went to Great Lakes, you went to school. I went to school for 2 years before I ended up on a ship. And the guys and eventually the girls, but my first 5 years in the military was, I was on an all-male ship and all that. But the folks that I served with are from just about every walk of life, from, You know, we had a crazy Indian, Native American for those that, but he prefers to be called an Indian, that would get drunk and try to go to the 04 level and dance naked under the moon,
Right.
to a guy that, you know, a group of guys that the reason I'm a gym addict is the guys that I met when I first got into the military. And they're still my family. We're still super tight. And, you know, at this point in my life, when I look at them and I look back at how eclectic and how different and diverse that whole group of guys are, you know, the thing that we share is that we love each other and that we serve together. And well, if you could bottle what the military builds and serve that for dinner to the rest of the world, we could get rid of a whole bunch of problems. I just don't know how to get to that. But anyway, I'm sorry to really go off center there, but it's special. Like now my synapses are firing because that's part of transitioning that I'm dealing with that I miss. I really miss. I miss my family. That's what my wife and I call them, is our family, our friends that become our family. And I so miss that, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, back to you and your process.
And I'll probably mess the agenda up here, but I'll piggyback on that, right? You know, a question that a lot of vets get all the time, right? Is like, what do you miss and everything? And like for me, I've been out 5 years, right? And like I said, I was kind of burnt out. So I will tell you, like, I don't miss duty days, right? I don't miss the smell of amine on the ship, right? I'm okay not being on deployment. I honestly am. But the camaraderie is one thing you do miss. It's very similar, like even in my world, like what people talk about with sports, when athletes kind of walk away, the thing they struggle with is like the locker room, right? And it's just, I get that, right? Because it's a real thing. Because like the thing, when I think about the military, like I do default to just sometimes just the conversations. Like I'll never have an experience in my life again, right? That's like the mid-watch on deployment, right? And just bullshitting with guys, right? Like seriously, just bullshitting. Right? I'll never have an experience again like on my first boat, standing at topside watch, a couple guys, the mid-watch from like balls to six, whatever it is, just on the pier, just talking on a Saturday, nothing going on, right? It's a real thing, right? It's a camaraderie.
Yeah.
That you'll never get again, right? Because you never spend that much time with anybody else, right? So, you know, so it's I do miss that, right? It's a real thing, and things like this is actually are good to talk about and kind of let it out a little bit, you know.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Yeah, it is, right? Because I think sometimes if I'm in the synapses firing, I think about like, you know, life's going okay for me. I'm okay, good, but sometimes I do get on my you know, reminiscing about some of that stuff. And that's really what it is, just missing the camaraderie and just the conversation and the BSing. So
yeah. So to put it back on track though, and this is what I'm a year out in finding the way to translate that into your civilian life, to find that happiness, that warm place where the folks that you hang out with become family. You know, how have you found? Because I'll be honest, I went back and thought, oh, I'm going to hang out with my high school buddies, but they're living their life, and I started so young that I'm a grandfather. They're still trying to get their kids out of high school, you know. And so that's not where it didn't click where I thought it would. So I'm still trying to kind of figure out, you know, I'm now going to AMVETS and VFW and trying to find a home, if you will, where I share a commonality with people. How did you do it? How are you doing it? Or are you just focusing on family, and is that's what keeping you moving forward?
Well, yeah, family is definitely important for me. And like, honestly, that's one of the big reasons why I got out, because I really did value just the time I could have with my wife and kids, right? But once again, as cliche as it sounds, right, really finding your passion is important. Once again, something that's really easier said than done. Everybody will tell like people when they're going through TAPS or whatever it's called now, just, oh yeah, find something you want to do. Yeah, got it. Okay, but like how attainable is that, right? If everybody could just walk out the Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, just do whatever they want, we have no problems, right? It's not always that seamless, right? So for me, right, I really do have a passion for what we'll call generally just HR work, right? But the field where I get to like do stuff like this and interact with people, right?
Right.
And that's really what it was for me. And I lucked out, right? Because when I was my recruiting tour in the military really kind of like got the gears turning for this HR thing, right? I did good on recruiting, got capped out there, all that kind of stuff. I just liked it. I was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got out, I was looking for that same type of like interaction with people. So I was looking for recruiting jobs all over the place. And there's a lot of those jobs that if I had landed them, right, probably wouldn't have liked it too much because it's just sitting in the box, doing phone power, just trying to meet a quota.
Mm-hmm.
And my situation here at the Cavs, and especially now that I get to run it a little bit, it's just I can go out there, have those conversations with people, and just help people.
Right.
I hear myself, and I feel like I'm sounding like an infomercial, but it really is the truth. Like just being able to talk to people and give people like a chance and opportunity. Right. That's why it means so much to me is that my conversation that I had with you a year and a half ago actually helped you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just to talk to people. I get that stuff all the time. There's so many people out there just either trying to transition from the military or trying to get into sports, and the people just they have no idea how to get started.
Yeah.
Or they do have an idea, right? People are just blowing them off, so that happens too. And I love being able just to kind of give people like a pathway or motivation or just like a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of helped me out a lot, right? And like I said, my path for the Cavs, I didn't end up right here, right? So I started with the Cavs.
Yeah, you're going right into my next question. So
Go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you
No. Talk about it. Let's talk about how you got where you are inside the organization. I think it's really cool, to be honest with you. Like it's just neat that you came in a certain way and ended up where in a place that really places your talents where they need to be inside the organization.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And for me, I wanted to work in sports, but at the same time, like this is reality. I'm getting out the Navy. Like I got a wife at the time, 2 kids, now 4 kids, because some twins popped up on me. So the truth of the matter is, like, I need a job, right? And that's kind of the stress a lot of people feel. Like I'm not retired, right? I don't have a check coming, right? I need a job. So I was fishing for all like the local sports teams, Browns, Cavs, Indians/Guardians. And nothing was biting at first. I was actually in the process of lining up an interview with the clinic, right? To do a talent acquisition role out there.
Yeah.
Just getting started, right? They had some really good programs there to kind of help transition the people, kind of get set up. And right when I was getting that interview set up, the Cavs called. I applied for a job actually in retail. Knew nothing about retail. Never ran a store or handled money in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was like, hey, like I'm getting out the Navy, I need a job, right? So I need a job that's going to pay something, right? I can't get out of here and try to put my family on some kind of entry level.
You could sell. You were the Navy taught you how to sell. You were a recruiter.
You know what? And I looked, I did, but like when it comes down to this reality, like I need a little more base salary than that, right? I know I can live off it. That's what it comes down to right now. You can make a killing in sales, right?
Right.
But I wanted some guaranteed money up front. That's what it is, right? And like I said, everybody, and I'm not down in the sales because there's people in sales making a killing, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I wanted something that just could get me started, right? I owe that to my wife and my kids, right? To have some stability. So anyway, as I ramble, got that job with retail.
No, we always owe our stability and our sanity to our significant others, don't we?
That's true.
Yeah.
Got that job in retail, and that had a long title, arena, retail, training manager. But bottom line, my 2 primary functions were hiring the staff that worked part-time in retail at the field house, or at the time, Quicken Loans Arena. So there's a team shop we had to staff, and there's like some auxiliary merchandise stands that we had to staff up. So I got to hire, interview people, had these interactions that I liked, right? And then, ran payroll and just kind of worked as like a 3-headed management team that ran the retail department during events. So all Cavs games, but also the Cleveland Monsters, which is the AHL hockey team there, and all events and concerts. That's the part of that job that people don't always have awareness of, is that there's a lot of folks working down where I work at that work all 3 of those: Cavs, Monsters, concerts, and there's hundreds of them every year. Right?
I noticed. We went to a concert for Christmas.
TSO?
Yes.
Yep.
And all the folks that we always saw at the Cavs games for the same folks telling people where to find their seats
Mm-hmm.
at the concert.
It's a lot. So
I imagine.
did that for two seasons. They call it and enjoyed it, right? But once we found out that my wife was pregnant with twins, I was going to 4 kids. And once the twins actually got here, working the shift that I was working, the schedule I was working was just it was causing a strain. We'll say that.
Yeah, I imagine so.
So one day, because I did all the hiring, I had a relationship with HR, big organizational HR, and I was just walking to drop off some paperwork, and I saw a desk open, and I was like, "Hey, what happened to so and so?" And they're like, "Yeah, he took another job," and that job was for a training and engagement coordinator for the organization. And I said, like, just in passing, is no shit, right? I was like, "Hey, man, I'll look at it." Right? I said something like that, like, "Hey, I'm interested," right? And they called me back. The lady I worked with all the time, right? This paperwork, passed my name on to the head of HR here, and they gave me a call. I interviewed for that role and ended up getting it. And that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to get into this HR field and learn about it. I actually took what on paper looks like a demotion, right? I was working at the manager level. And I took it at the coordinator level. So in this world, that kind of the way resumes look, and it looked like maybe a step back. And I'll never forget, man. I asked the question about my current boss. I was talking to her, and I asked her, I was like, "Hey, I'm a manager right now. Can I keep that?" And long story short, the answer was no. But she told me, she was like, "Hey, if you work here and stick with it, your influence here and what you'll be able to accomplish will be like unmatched." She said it to me just like that, right? So on one hand, she told me, "Hey, like, no, you're not getting what you want there." But she said, if you trust me, right, and stick with me, there's a pathway here for you to grow.
Right.
So I trusted her. That's what it comes down to. And so much of this stuff, and this is when it comes to, like, people ask me all the time, "How'd you get there? How'd you do it?" Obviously hard work and doing what you got. That's a big part of it. But a lot of it's just who you work for, who's advocating for you.
Right.
That's truth, man. Like,
right.
It's coming from the Navy, like, you had to advocate for your sailors, right? They have to do their part. You gotta work, you gotta hit your quals, you gotta, do your boards and all that Navy stuff. We get it, right? But you have to go in there in the quarters, right, and advocate for your people when it's time to rank them, when it's time to do this, that, and the other. It's no different here.
Oh yeah. On so many levels. I mean, you're picking a scab for me right now from my time in the military, but I will tell you that I was once someone. It was weaponized against me when I was a command mass chief. They would say, "You're so emotional,"
right?
And I wasn't emotional. I was passionate. I was passionate about taking care of my people. And if I was convinced that someone needed to hear it and listen and do and take care of their people and the trickle down leadership, if you will, I was going to stand on a desk and pound my fist, and sometimes it played against me, but you've got to be passionate about advocating for your people. Call it emotional if you want.
It's not. It's the right thing to do, man. And I wish I'm not getting a tangent on this myself, right? But I wish more leaders in general would do that, right? It's uncomfortable sometimes and it's tough, right? You have people looking at you in the quarters, probably like, "Hey, what are you doing?" That's not how this goes, right?
Right.
But you got to do it, right? And that stuff, it feels like it's not the leadership 101 book, right? But it really does matter, right? And your subordinates will look at that and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna work for this guy."
Right. Well, so part of, and I know the folks in the military watching will understand this, but eventually you get to a place in leadership where you have to be comfortable with saying that if I'm doing right and I still don't advance, or I don't get the next thing, but if I'm doing right and I'm reaching back and pulling the folks that I'm leading to where I am, then it's okay. Especially in the military, because eventually, like myself, where was I going to go? I wasn't going to be advanced. They couldn't advance me. You could make me a promotable, which is like the bottom of the rung in the eval rankings. There was no rankings. I was a master chief. So, and I think that in the military anyway, that leadership level exists for a reason, so that you can, not that you're untouchable, but now it's your job to get everybody behind you to the highest level you can help them achieve. Now they need to achieve it on their own and in their own, efforts. Like you said, they've got to put the work in, but it's up to you to support them and be passionate for them. So I'm sorry I'm taking over here.
No, man, you got me thinking again. Tell me if I got to stay on the agenda here. You had me thinking.
No, there is no agenda. No time limit either.
Yeah, just going back to the Navy here, man. I've always been a recipient of people that looked out for me, leadership, right? Well, as I said earlier, like I was not a super sailor, right? I got to get on the back half. I really did. And I always had I didn't have the maturity level at first, right? I've always had the headpiece. I can go in there, get my quals done, went in there, got my fish. Like it was never an issue with that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
But there's the maturity piece. And like my first boat, man, I ran into some issues, right? Just doing dumb stuff, right? Dumb stuff that ended me at a captain's mast is, right?
Oh, did you really? All right.
That's what ended me at a captain's mast, right? And, I mean, like it's nothing. I didn't do anything. It was an underage drinking, and it escalated to a captain's mast, right? But once again, I never forget is right because and I'll keep this brief. I got in trouble. I got underage drinking, okay? And it went from, hey, you're a dumbass, don't do that again. And it kept escalating up. Nobody thought I was going to captain's mast, right? So went there, happened, LPO they actually arrested me for this, right?
Wow.
Long story about that, but LPO gets me out, right? And it's like, hey, like, dude, like I was still I don't know if it's even a correct word at the time, a unqualified person. I won't say the word they used, but
right. So you didn't have your PIN yet, so you were unqualified.
I was still a nub, they called it, right? And I was still going through it, right?
Right.
And LPO got me out, but I was tracking the right way, doing my divisional quals, my ship quals are going good. And my LPO was like, it'll be all right, man. Like, and then it went to DRB, and the DRB chief quarters went, it was what it was. But I walked out of that feeling like, I felt the weight of it. I'm a dumbass. I messed up, but we'll be good. Next thing you know is XOI, right? Like, oh, go XOI, right? XOI. Once I got out of that, I knew I was going to master that, right? Because XO was not, that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But anyway, I go to mass. You know how these things go, right? And everybody's there, my leadership, and I never forget, man. I get there when he needs somebody. My LPO at the time, Shabako Smith, STS1, right? Said something positive for me. That meant so much for me. In those situations, so many times is right. It's just when it's already spiraled out of control, right? And you're standing there in front of the green table. It's just like, well, too late now. And I had someone actually speak on my behalf, right? It meant so much to me, man. And then like the COB at the time, or the subs called COB, the Surf Fleet CMCs, right?
Right. Chief of the boat. Yeah.
The chief of the boat said something positive for me, right? It gave me a chance, right? And changed the whole momentum of how that captain match is going, right? And I mean, honestly, to me, saved my Navy career, right? Because what does happen is that they had just decided to pile drive me right there and put me on the P track and all that good stuff, right? You know how this goes, right? I'll probably get out after 4 years and who knows what happens, right? They gave me a chance, they advocated for me, and they gave me a chance to progress my career. Right. So that's why I think about that. I think about that all the time now, even though it was 15, 16 years ago now, when people get in trouble, they need sometimes, as a leader, obviously there's times where you really got to like, if someone screws up, you're not disregarding that, but sometimes people need you to stick up for them, advocate for them, let them know, man, there's a path out of this, Everything
is a teachable moment. And
everything. That's what I was trying to find. I couldn't find the word.
Everything's a teachable moment. You can't flush people because they're not at the level. And I think leaders, and I may say this in every doggone podcast, but I think that as a leader, you look at people who are new in an organization or new to a job or just introduced to something, and you expect them to be at your level, right? And especially as I got older and older and older in the Navy, I'd look back at a young chief, for example, and some chiefs like me, I made it in 8.5 years. And now I'm at 22, 23 years in the Navy. I've been a chief petty officer for 15 years. And I look back and I go, ugh, what's wrong with these chiefs? You know, and I'd have to kind of go, no, slow your roll turbo. They're not where you are today. They are where you were when you put your anchors on, or when you put your first chevron on, or when you first came into the Navy, or when you were screwing up and dropping out of college. I had to use that with my son because he did what I did and joined the Navy. So I instead of getting mad or frustrated, I would just have to kind of go, slow down. Everyone's got to learn at their own speed. Maybe instead of crushing them, you pick them up off the ground and help them get back on the right path. So
I appreciate it. So
yeah.
to close that up, I got into HR. I got way sidetracked, right? And was able to because a leader saying me trusting a leader and believing that the path they have for me, I was able to progress in my career in HR, and now I'm able to kind of like really run and drive the talent acquisition here at the Cavs. So
yeah. So let's get after the Cavs. So I don't know if you know this. So one of my heroes, whom I've only met once, and it was a very embarrassing meeting, is Larry Nance. I grew up watching him. I actually played a basketball game. I live right down the road from where the Richfield Coliseum used to be.
Yeah.
I played a high school basketball game on the court prior to a Cavs game when I was in high school, and so I live literally right around the corner from him, and would love to actually meet him one more time. Because my first time meeting him, it was kind of embarrassing. We were at a gym, and I just hurt myself, and I was watching everybody play, and he walked up. And how you don't recognize a man that's 7 foot tall, I don't know. But he walked up next to me, and actually his son and daughter were playing basketball at the time.
Right.
And he goes, "Why don't you go out there and get some?" And I was like, well, I'm kind of hurt. An excuse that sounds like BS, but really wasn't BS. I'd actually torn a muscle, and I couldn't get on the court at the time. And boy, did I want to. Right. And he's like, oh well, and he walks away. And as he walked away, I'm like, it's Larry Nance. What the heck? I grew up watching this guy play ball, and now I'm watching a team, a young team, with Allen and Mitchell and Garland and Mobley and the list goes on and on and on. How fun is it right now to be part of a winning organization that's in a growth phase where it seems to all be headed in the right direction? We won't get into the fact that we lost Love this week. It's very, very sad for most of us, right? Because here's the other piece that I think a lot of people don't realize about Cleveland and the sports teams, and they don't quite understand why we're so accepting. The reason I love going to Cavs games, the best way I can explain it is the reason I go to Cavs games is often I go to Cavs games and see the same people.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the players or the folks that work there. I mean, the same Clevelanders that are like me, that love their teams. It is a community, and I'm sure a lot of small market teams experience this. The fans experience this. The reason Browns fans are so dedicated is because we all feel like we're the same person, if you will. We've all experienced the same stuff. We're from a blue collar town. Cleveland will never get rid of being a blue collar town, no matter how digital we become or service oriented we become. We all share in who we are. It's a shared identity. In the Cavs, in the wintertime, in the cold wintertime, and the Monsters provide that. So what's it like to get up every morning and be part of that kind of organization? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it really is exciting. Like in many ways, it's a dream come true for me, right? To actually be doing this, right? So to be someone that, hey, I love sports, grew up watching sports, be able to go to, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse every single day to work, right? It's a blessing. It really is, man. It's a incredible place to work, right? That has leadership that's progressive, right? That's not scared of change, and really just cultivates a real family type of atmosphere, right? So you talked about the atmosphere at the games with the fans, and I would tell you it's the same type of atmosphere internally in the organization, right? So, a lot of times all these sports teams have a lot of brand recognition and name cachet, but they're relatively small businesses. We don't have 10,000 employees there.
Right.
So it's a small, but everybody gets to know each other from the CEO on down, right? Leaders and everything, and it's a really, really cool environment, man. As you mentioned, right, there's sports, and especially in this region of the country, right, are so important because there's not many other things that are going to drive traffic to downtown Cleveland in the middle of the winter. It's true,
right? No, that casino,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
right?
That's the big thing, especially for like an NBA team in this part of the country, right? This isn't. I love Cleveland, but it's not we don't have a steady stream of like tourists. People aren't just coming here
Right.
on February 18th, right? So to get that traffic down there for small businesses, right, for communities, right, it's just awesome. It really is, and this is my 5th season here, right, and so I've seen all aspects of it, right. So my first year here was that last finals run with LeBron, right. We had a couple years the team was performing super great, but the thing about the leadership here is that it didn't change, right. So we control on the business side of things, and there was still positivity, there was still eagerness, there was still a drive to get better, right? Mm-hmm. Even when the team wasn't performing great on the court, right? So you have all that together, when you have those ingredients as a baseline, now when a team actually is good and viable, right? It's been awesome. Everything's kind of melted together now perfectly. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing better than having like a young team that's kind of come together organically, that kind of is building together. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, when we go to games, we're down behind. We actually sit behind the visitors bench in the section that where our seats are. But we really enjoy watching the interaction with the Cavs, the team itself. Right. I know that when Okoro wasn't doing too well with the shooting, that they would still talk about. You could watch up on the screen in between during timeouts. They'd say one of the questions they asked a bunch of players was, "Who's your favorite player in the locker room?" And overwhelmingly it was Okoro. Or and I love watching them dance with Moondog at the beginning of the games, and I love how Allen waves to the fans at the beginning of the games, and it's just there's this sense, and I think that if it wasn't true, it would show in their play on the court. I played basketball; that was my sport in high school, and my best friend, whom I'm still super tight with, we would fight, and I'm pretty sure that the weeks or whatever, because we fought like brothers, that we weren't getting along. There wasn't the clicking on the court, right? Because you have to have that chemistry in the locker room as well as on the court. I think that permeates through an organization in performance, and I would say, even in my experience as a civilian, in my short time for the last year in the 2 jobs I had, my deep experience is I watched it when you didn't have a true family or a true, integration in certain groups in that organization. It affected your performance. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to watch, and you're almost invited in as a fan, right? Especially when you're sitting. That's the interesting part about basketball, is because you're darn near down on top of the court. Yeah, and you're so close to them. They don't know you, but you feel like you know them, and it's a cool experience. I've enjoyed the season. Hope it goes much longer than last.
Yeah, well, we all do, man. So you summarized it perfectly. I have nothing more to add there. It's just it's a great environment, and everybody down there, from our game entertainment teams, game presentation. There's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes there to orchestrate.
Right.
Everything we see as a fan, right? That I have so much respect for, that I had no awareness of when I got into sports.
Yeah, so an embarrassing moment, talk about the entertainment. 216 Sticks were out on the sidewalk when we went to the first game, and I did not recognize them. I hadn't been to but a few games earlier at the end of last season. I tried to tip them, because that's what you do. When you go to big cities and you see guys, street performers. Cleveland doesn't have a ton of street performers, so I just wasn't tracking that part. And they're like, no, we can't take. And I went, oh crap, you guys are part of the whole thing, the talent team out on the court. I had no idea. It's very embarrassing. I didn't mean to insult them by any stretch. They were that good. I just wanted to tip them, throw a $20 bill in the doggone bucket. And they're like, no, we can't take that.
Those guys are awesome. Very talented guys. It's cool.
Yeah, we enjoy the in-between show as much as we enjoy the show on the court. I mean, we were at the Bulls game where Donovan Mitchell scored 71. I don't think it gets much better than that.
You picked a good one to go to.
Yeah, it was one of the games I had for my season tickets. My best friend and I, the guy that I told you about, that this is like my brother, we have tickets next to each other, and we've gone all the games together. And that game, I think we were both pretty much going crazy. It was amazing. Yeah.
I mean, it's only been done a handful of times. I mean, that's an incredible amount of points. People have no idea just like how hard that is to do. It's crazy.
I think if he didn't score any points and he just hit that layup there at the end to put us into overtime, and I say us because, again, this is a family, but to put the Cavs into overtime and then go on to win the game was just insanity. It was an amazing play, and it's a great memory to be part of. Was fantastic. Well, man, do you have anything else you want to add? This has been a great conversation, but I don't want to hold you too late on a Saturday.
No, I appreciate it, man. I know I was kind of all over the place, man. So if you ever have me back on again, I'll stick to the agenda. But it was
don't make promises you can't keep.
I'll tell the people it's been reaching out to me about getting that beer. I've been the hold up, so we'll definitely connect and get that done for sure.
I look forward to it, man. I owe you. I do, and. So just stick around. Let's chat here real quick at the end, and I'll be right back with you. So, hey, I think the biggest thing I could tell you from this conversation is that, you never know the opportunities that might pop up, if you will, to make connections with people that might change your life or just may enhance it, and that is changing someone's life. So, never turn an opportunity down to mentor. Never be afraid to reach out and have a conversation, especially for those of my military brothers and sisters out there that are thinking about transitioning and you're not sure what to do. There are so many people out there. There are so many organizations out there just waiting to help. It's up to you to reach out and find them. And Gavin's a great example of just the amazing people that are out there that have done what you've done and have gone on to do amazing work. So get out there, motivate, love you, mean it. Have an awesome Saturday. We'll see you next week.